Welcome into another episode of the Saints Insider. Today is Wednesday, August the 13th. I'm Zach Ewing, joined again by our California crew, Matthew Paris and Luke Johnson, out there in Orange County covering the Saints portion of training camp where they get out of this heat and humidity. We are brought to you by Bank Plus, and we got lots to talk about, guys. Lots has happened since last we talked.
Let's get after it.
All right, let's do it. So the Saints are in California for two more practices. They practice 4 o'clock Pacific time tonight, so that's evening time in New Orleans. And then they have a joint practice with the LA Rams tomorrow earlier in the day. That'll be like afternoon New Orleans time. I think 1 in the afternoon New Orleans time. And so that's it. Then they travel back Friday, and we've got another preseason game in the Dome against the Jacksonville Jaguars on Sunday. So
one point of clarity there before we're talking about this.
Okay.
The Saints have not yet confirmed that they're doing joint practices, but all signs point to joint practices. I mean, like, we have friends who cover the Rams who already have their parking passes for joint practices. So assuming that's actually happening, but Kellen, I asked Kellen more about it yesterday, and he's like, yeah, we're still working on it. So
I suppose
likely
you see these things get canceled sometimes. Like last year, we have too many injuries. And 2 years ago, I think it was the Texans canceled on the Saints because they didn't want to risk further injuries. So I guess something like that could happen. But as of right now, we think that Thursday's practice will be a joint practice with the Rams. And we'll talk about that. Like, I think that's important for the Saints to get one of those in if they can. So we'll see. But in the meantime, they do have one more practice. And then, and then the joint practice and then the preseason game Sunday, Matt. And I guess what I'm kind of getting at here is that training camp is running out of time pretty quickly. Like it feels like the regular season is still quite a ways away. It's still almost 4 weeks away, but some decisions are going to have to start to be made here, starting with quarterback, I think, at some point pretty soon.
Yeah, and it's kind of, I don't know if startling is the right word, but there's just so many spots up for grabs still, quarterback being chief among them. It seems like Tyler Shough lately has had the momentum in this quarterback battle. I feel like it's going his way. I feel like Spencer Rattler is tailing off a little bit, but interior defensive line, inside linebacker, running back, wide receiver, like there are just a lot of spots on this roster where like the last few a good preseason showing could maybe swing that, and there's still a lot to be decided.
Yeah, Matt and I were talking about this last night, actually, because, like any beat writer out there, we can't stop talking about our jobs when we're sitting down and having a glass of wine. But, I think there's going to be some really interesting, difficult cuts on this team, and Matt talked about the two that we were talking about last night. What do you do with the defensive line? Do you keep like that interior defensive line? Do you keep 5 there? Do you keep 6? Like how many edge rushers do you keep? It's going to be a different, an interesting kind of calculus with how they assemble this roster. And I think, like to Matt's point, there's been a lot of linebackers who have shown some really nice things. I think DeMarco Jackson's flashed a lot, especially as a rusher, and it's something we've never seen him do in his career here with the Saints. Jalen Ford had a nice practice the other day. He's kind of popping off a little bit. And they've got some guys here that are going to make things really interesting, just even beyond the quarterback position. And the one that I think we still don't have any real clarity on is running back. I think every single guy on the roster, maybe with the exception of Marcus Yarns, who just doesn't get very many reps right now, every single guy on the roster has a case for why they should be on the roster. So it's going to be interesting. They might keep 4 there. Maybe they want to keep Velus Jones because I think he's shown some nice things. And have him be kind of a utility player, does some special teams, and comes in, plays 3, 4, 5 snaps a game offensively. I don't know. I don't know what their thinking is on that, but they've got a lot of really interesting decisions to make on this roster itself.
Cut down day is August the 26th, 3 o'clock. So it's less than 2 weeks away. Is this a sign, guys, that the Saints have a little more depth than maybe we thought or that they had in years past? Or is it just nobody's really managed to separate from the pack for those last few spots?
I don't know. I mean, I probably a little bit more. I think in some areas specifically, they counted on Nathan Shepard and Colin Saunders to play a lot of ball for him this year. But Matt and I last night were like, are both of those guys on the team? I think right now we're probably yes on both of them, but like maybe not. And those guys were like starting caliber players for him last year. Now, obviously, like the structure of the defense is different, and it's going to change how they view like how many to keep at certain positions. But I think in some areas they are deeper than last year, but in some, like I still don't feel really good about their wide receivers, and I think their offensive line depth has been a little shaky. So I think it's the roster's just shifted a little bit as to what parts of it are deeper.
All right, so we are going to talk a little bit, speaking of depth, about the O-line injuries. We'll also, of course, talk quarterbacks. Also want to touch on, maybe some reasons for optimism in the run defense, and then also what to watch for if the Saints indeed do have a joint practice tomorrow. So we'll get to that. First, want to let you know that the Saints Insider is sponsored by Bank Plus. From small business to big business, home loans to Bank Anywhere technology, Bank Plus is here for New Orleans. New deposit customers can reach out today to learn about incredible rate specials. Learn more at bankplus.net. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. So we'll start with sort of the news of the last, 18 hours or so. And we got some clarity on the offensive line injuries the Saints suffered in Sunday's preseason game against the Chargers. One is that Will Clapp is out for the season. That one's confirmed. We know he's done. He's on IR. Backup center, done for the year. The other one is a little less certain, but there have been a couple of reports on Trevor Penning that it's a turf toe. As we know, he missed a lot of time as a rookie with turf toe 3 years ago. He can, a lot of times turf toes can be anywhere from 4 weeks to a lot longer than that. I guess we'll start with this. His preseason is almost certainly over, and the start of his regular season is probably in jeopardy, right?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, that puts a lot of spotlight on Dylan Radins. And it's that. I mean, that's why they signed him. We thought going into this that Dylan Radins was actually going to be a candidate to compete for that left guard spot, but the Saints have been so consistent with that front five look that it hasn't even been a competition. But I don't think it's the worst thing in the world for Radins to get an opportunity. I mean, it's really terrible timing for Penning, and I think Penning could have added a lot to that offensive line. But in terms of Radins going in there, I'd much rather have Radins playing guard than tackle, which is what we saw. We saw him playing tackle in Sunday's game to a bit of mixed results there. But he met with reporters yesterday, and one thing he was saying was not only does he feel more comfortable at guard, but he feels a lot more comfortable on the left side of the line compared to the right. If you think of the sack fumble that Spencer Rattler had where Radins got blown by at tackle, that was on the right side. And so putting him on the interior, I think, is better for him. But it's still, I do still think they're ultimately going to miss Trevor Penning a little bit.
I think you're very kind to say mixed results in Sunday's game.
Well, the weird thing is
his PFF grade from Sunday.
His PFF grade, I have not seen his PFF grade.
It's like 77 point. They actually graded him like pretty positive. It was like the most surprising thing I saw. I mean,
PFF grades, I don't know, man. Sometimes you just wonder. Small sample size, I guess.
Yeah, it's probably one of those things where like the big negative was really obvious. I think there was like another like 2 or 3 reps that were pretty bad, but like for maybe it was just like generally speaking, he did okay for the majority of his reps, and that's why they graded him that way. I don't know. It was surprising to me. I think this is a big blow though, and like you said, you alluded to earlier. I mean, he dealt with a turf toe injury his rookie season. It cost him like 3 months. He didn't get back until the last month of the season, and I'm sure by now people are well aware of what turf toe is. But if you're not, I mean, it sounds innocuous, but it's a really gnarly injury. It's like a dislocated toe, and it's really a difficult thing for a lineman to come back from. So much of their game is their feet. So I think this is something to watch. I mean, I certainly think that week 1 is definitely in jeopardy, and maybe a little bit into the season as well. And it's good that they have somebody like Dylan Radins who has starting experience at guard in the NFL. He's somebody that, like Matt said, that we anticipated when they signed him could be their starting guard. This is before they drafted Kelvin Banks. So it's good to have that. it's good to not rely on some of the other players in the roster right now. But I think it's a blow. I think Penning was having a pretty nice camp. He had a pretty good preseason game. So it's a shame, but like this is kind of the reality of the business in the NFL. And something the Saints are certainly very familiar with is shifting pieces on the offensive line.
Yeah, that's I think the other part of this is just it's another blow in Trevor Penning's kind of journey that's just been so up and down throughout his career. It starts with the injury, and then he gets benched, and then he moves to the right side and actually surprises people last year, and now it's like, oh, he's found a home at guard, and here's another blow. So it tests the depth. The hope is obviously that Dylan Radins is going to be better at guard than he was at tackle, despite what the PFF grades say. And then the other part of this, guys, is Will Clapp. Like, that's just more depth that's gone. Obviously, it's not as big of a deal since he wasn't in the starting five, but the more that these injuries pile up, the closer and closer you get to what we saw last year, where the Saints are just kind of desperate to find NFL caliber offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, center was a concern for me. Backup center was a concern for me. Even when Clapp was healthy, it was kind of the opposite of Penning. He was not having a particularly good training camp, I thought. And, he was a veteran, was experienced. Maybe it would have evened out if he had gotten some playing time in the regular season. But, I mean, of those backup centers, I think Tisarelli Simpkins has been the most impressive of them. And he was only playing center for this team like 2 weeks ago, but he had a really nice preseason game. He played 97% of the snaps. I think he's a guy who's made like a really nice case for a roster spot, and that's encouraging to see. But they need someone like that because they just don't have like the notable presence of a veteran or anything, especially now that Clapp is down.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Torricelli Simpkins. Like, I don't know, is he the answer? Is he like one of these breakout guys? It seems like a lot to put on a guy like that. Eric McCoy better stay healthy, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they worked out a couple guys earlier this week too, who were you guys who have played a lot of football, who are still street free agents. Scott Quisenberry and Cody Whitehair. I think Cody Whitehair was a Pro Bowler at one point in his career. So like, they felt. I guess after going through that workout with those guys, they felt comfortable moving forward with Simpkins. So, and obviously we're talking about backup center, right? This is like breaking case of glass. Like Eric McCoy goes out, you're probably kind of screwed anyways in that sense. He's such an important player for what they do, especially with a young quarterback. Like he's the one calling protections. So like, I'm not going to feel good anyway about it, even if like I feel like Simpkins is a guy who can help this team. Because like McCoy is so important to what they do that like if the worst case happens with him, it's probably bad news for the line generally, even if they really like Simpkins.
And they also have Shane Lemieux on the roster, who started 4 games last year, who's an option there.
Yeah, and don't forget, I don't know if they do this because it's been a while, but like Cesar Ruiz was a center coming into the NFL. He's played center in the league when McCoy's been out with injuries before. I don't know if they would want to move him over, but like that's another possibility there where you can have him maybe give you some higher quality snaps at center if needed, and if you feel more comfortable with other players playing guard.
Yeah, but I mean, then you almost need to replace 2 guards if that's the case, if Penning is still out. So you see this musical chairs.
It's always the question with that. It'd be the same thing if like Penning was healthy and one of the tackles went out, and then the question is, well, do we move Penning back out to tackle? Do we feel better about that? Or do we want to keep him there? You're talking about like messing up the whole continuity of the line when you start moving parts around. But like we've seen teams do that before in the past.
Yeah. So obviously news could have been worse on Penning. It's not season ending or anything like that, but it could have been better too. So I don't think, and he's going to lose reps in the preseason at bare minimum. So that is definitely a concern as we move forward. We're going to move on the Saints Insider here and talk quarterbacks. You guys alluded to this. Tyler Shough has a lot of momentum. Is Tyler Shough now in the lead of this competition, in your opinion? Have we gone to the point, Matt, where if the Saints were playing the Arizona Cardinals regular season this Sunday, Tyler Shough would be the starter?
I don't know. Yes? Question mark. I think he's been the better quarterback of late. I think increasingly as I've watched like this battle unfold, like I was surprised to see Spencer Rattler take the first team reps to begin practice, and I was like, oh, okay, interesting. Like they're going to give him a chance here. But then I watched the entire practice unfold, and the way they divided it, it was like they shifted later in when they went to call it periods. Chuck got reps with like the first team O line and such, and ultimately he got more plays with the ones that day than Rattler did, and so it just feels right now that like it is trending toward Chuck, and I feel a little bit bad for Rattler because he's a guy who is so confident, and he gave that quote to Yahoo Sports early in the preseason or earlier in training camp about how he felt like he was the best quarterback in camp, and he was doing really well, and he looks almost like he's lost his confidence a little bit lately. At least I think that like yesterday's practice, he looked pretty shaky in moments. I'm sure he's still very confident in himself and he believes in himself. It's just his play is a little bit more hesitant than it was. And maybe it's just overreacting to a practice in the game, but I don't know. I just like that's a guy who needs a strong finish here if he wants to keep to be named the starter. And right now, I think he's searching just a little bit.
I'm gonna just like quasi disagree with Matt because I mainly agree with everything you said, but I think if they had today, it would still be Spencer Rattler starting at quarterback. I think the body of work has just been like you have to take that all into consideration. And to me, he's just been like the most consistent day in, day out player at that position. But I agree with Matt that it is definitely trending toward Tyler Shough right now. And if he continues to stack days like this, like I think he's on track to be the week one starter. I just it feels like he is getting more and more and more and more comfortable, which is exactly what you want to see. Like this is what we've talked about all training camp. It looked really rough. He looked like a rookie. Everything looked fast. And you say you want to see him progress from there. Much the same way it did for Spencer Rattler last year. Like probably the same way it does for 95.7% of all rookie quarterbacks, right? Like they come in and they're just like learning the offense. They're learning their teammates. They're learning how to be an NFL quarterback, and it looks rough. You want to see it get better. And I think for Tyler Shough, it has gotten a lot better. But like he's got to continue to show that. Like it can't plateau or dip back down and start having like 3-4 consecutive rough practices in a row. Like he needs to continue like that kind of incremental upward momentum. So like if it ended today, I'd still go Spencer Rattler. And I think I think he'd be a fine NFL starter. But like, if Shough continues on this trajectory that he's on, like I think he's got potentially more upside there at the position.
Well, and I wonder if you talk about Rattler's kind of confidence diminishing and whether that's real or not. Like, I think the consensus prediction pretty much all the way through the summertime from the draft through training camp was that, Rattler is probably going to be ahead at first and then Shough will get more comfortable and that the coaching staff, all things being equal would prefer their hand-picked guy, their 40th pick in the draft. And it kind of feels like that's the way it's trending. And I don't think Spencer Rattler would consciously think that, but I wonder if subconsciously it's sort of like this is slipping from me and everybody's saying that, everybody wants it to be the number 40 pick and the new coaching staff's handpicked guy. And like, here we go down that path. And I don't know. I mean, he's got to turn that around.
Yeah, I'm sure that's part of it. I mean, to what Luke wrote about earlier in camp, like this thing is just about as much of the mental side of the competition than it is about the physical components and the traits. Like I know we haven't talked about him, but Jake Haener definitely looks like a guy who has realized that he has no shot in this quarterback race. And I asked Kellen Moore yesterday about if Jake Haener was still technically in the running, and he said yes, and
Come on.
that it's hard to get reps. He answered it. I was very skeptical about it, but Haener's demeanor and the way that, go look at the last time he talked to reporters, like he realizes that he's out of the running here. And it's just, I do think these guys do go through swings.
I got to say that's a little more than mildly disingenuous from Moore. Like at some point, you've got to be honest with people. We know what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, nobody even asked him about it for 3 days because it was just like obvious. It's like written on the wall, Like he's getting no reps in team. He had 3 pass attempts yesterday, Matt.
Yep.
And they were all in like the install periods, none of the call it periods. Which, like, for those who don't know what we're talking, call it is where Kellen Moore is calling the plays for the team or for the offense. Brandon Staley's calling plays for the defense. It's unscripted, like they're calling it like a game situation.
Much more realistic, yeah.
And Jake Haener got none of those yesterday, and he got like 4 minutes of game time in the preseason, compared to almost a full half for both Rattler and Shough. So, yeah, I mean, I don't understand why it's plain to see for everybody out there, including Jake, who hasn't taken a first team rep in like probably a week and a half. Yeah, I don't know why they can't just say like it's down between the 2 obvious guys who everybody thought it was down between anyways, who they were always like slipping up and saying, yeah, we feel great about both of our guys, all of our guys,
Yeah, he's a player's coach. I understand he wants to protect his guy. He was a 3rd string quarterback once upon a time, and that may play into it too. But at some point, like, just be honest with everybody, man. That's what this is. So we'll continue to monitor that. Are we in agreement? I mean, obviously still 2 practices to go, but Tyler Shough probably gets a shot to start on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't named it yet, but that's what I would do. I mean, I would just do it to see what he looks like with the ones. I mean, and I don't know what Jacksonville's going to do, but I would hope Jacksonville plays their starters. Like, you need to see him a little bit against higher quality of competition, because as good as Shough looked, the Chargers rested like more than 30 players on Sunday. There was a lot of backups. Rattler went against the backups too, but you just need to see. It's why the Rams at this joint practice happens. It's why those practices that session is going to be pretty interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume that Tyler Shough's going to be the guy, just like we were assuming last week it was going to be Spencer Rattler. But like, I don't know. Yeah, Kellen Moore could just stick with the rotation, and it is going to depend on like who they have out there. I don't know like how the Saints are going to approach their roster with this. Like, we didn't see a number of their most important players out there for the last game. I don't know. Are they going to play some of them this game? Do you think that's like a fair representation of what the quarterbacks can do if one of them's throwing to Rashid Shaheed and Chris Olave and has a first team offensive line in front of him, and the other one's throwing to Mason Tippin and Kevin Austin and behind the second and third team offensive line? Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know exactly how they're viewing this. Wish I could know, but we might get like a 8-word answer from Kellen Moore saying he's fired up about the opportunity. I don't know.
An 8-word answer that takes approximately 3.2 seconds to say.
He's impressive on that point right there.
You ever listen to like podcasts in 1 1/4 speed or something? Just like, hey, I just want to get through this. You couldn't do that with Kellen Moore. You wouldn't understand him.
I have my recorder app. For somebody who lives on my computer, I type way too slow. So thankfully, I have a recorder app where I can slow stuff down when I'm typing. And with Kellen, I almost have to slow that down to like, half speed just to type the answers as he's saying it.
Yeah, it's good. He's excited. It's okay. Speaking of excited, we are going to continue on the Saints Insider podcast. We'll talk about the run defense and why there may be some reasons for optimism. We'll also talk joint practice with the Rams. First, we owe you a 30-second break, and we will be back right after this.
Did they ask you to do the commercial too?
Yeah, but they just gave me one line.
Bet like a Caesar. Like, we're going to sit here and we're going to tell them how Caesar's Sportsbook is just so easy to use that you can watch and bet thousands of sports events, even some NFL games.
They'll probably show us betting on our favourite players and teams at all the Vegas hotspots too.
Like, we have time for that montage.
I told him I couldn't do it.
They couldn't afford me.
Welcome back to the Saints Insider podcast. Wednesday, August the 13th, Zach Ewing hanging out with Times-Picayune beat writers Matthew Paris and Luke Johnson from out in their California rental home as the Saints wrap up practice out there. Y'all will travel back on Friday, and then we will have another Saints Insider podcast sponsored by Bank Plus coming to you Friday. I'll be with our two columnists, Rod and Jeff, while these two guys travel back. And then, of course, the preseason game Sunday against Jacksonville. A couple of other topics to cover today. The run defense. Luke, you have a story at NOLA.com/Saints this morning about the Saints run defense. And a lot of it centers around the guy you have pictured there at the bottom of the screen, Davon Godchaux, who did not play against the Chargers. And so, you can't really take what happened against the Chargers as a representation of what this run defense looks like. But it wasn't bad, especially if you take out the quarterback runs. And I also think it just in general, there is reason for optimism here.
Yeah, I think so. I think Godchaux, we've just seen it consistently in camp. He is so strong at the point of attack, just like eat up double teams. Doesn't matter. He's got two guys on him, and a running back's coming through the hole. He just sticks his arm out, stops the guy, blowing up plays in the backfield. Like, he's a difference maker in this run defense. He might only play like 35% of the snaps for this team this year, but they're going to be really important 35%. And that's just kind of like the fulcrum around which everything else works. Then you look at just the additions they made this offseason. It's Godchaux, it's Justin Reed, it's Vernon Broughton, Danny Stutzman, Jonas Sanker with their first three defensive picks. Like, these are all guys who play up the middle of the defense. And you look at Sanker and Stutzman in particular, those two guys are like known for their ability as run defenders in college. This is a team that looked at what happened last year, obviously under a different scheme, and they said, we need to have better guys. So, they finished 31st in the NFL in run defense last year, 31st in yards per carry, bottom 10 in like all the advanced metrics, EPA per play, yards before contact. It was just bad. And I think they made a concerted effort with the hiring of Brandon Staley, with some of the moves they've made this year to get this run defense back in a better spot. And that, all good defenses have good run defenses for a reason. Like, it opens up so many things. You can bring pressure packages on 3rd and long. Like, there's so many different ways that a stout run defense helps you out. And I don't think they're going to finish like top 5 or anything defending the run, but it's certainly going to be a lot better than it was last year.
Yeah, that was one of the more surprising elements of the preseason opener to me, was that Davon Godchaux, like, I knew Davon Godchaux was important to the Saints, obviously, going into the season, but I didn't realize he was like a do not break out of the glass until we absolutely have to type of player for them. And he was like one of like the main guys that sat, because I think they played like 4 of their 11 starters on defense, maybe 5, but I would have maybe assumed that he was going to be one of them, and he sat, and he's just so vital to what they do. Has a really good track record, obviously, as Luke said, of being a strong run defender. So many guys have noticed or remarked about his strength, and you just see him like push guys off and just like react quickly. For as strong of a guy he is, like, he can close the gap really fast, and so I think that's going to be an important aspect to their run defense as well.
Yeah, and then I want to add too that I think Staley's scheme is going to be really beneficial in this. When they're in their base defense, like, yes, it's a 3-4 look, but they're going to have 5 guys on the line of scrimmage, versus Dennis Allen's 4-3 look where it's 4 guys, right? It is you have 4 linebackers on the field, but 2 of those linebackers were defensive ends in the old scheme. It's 5 defensive line effectively on the field, and when you add that extra body to the front, I mean, that's you're sucking the air out of the opponent's run game. That's exactly what you're trying to do, right? If you're in offense, you're trying to manipulate space and find a crease and attack it and get a big gain. And if you are the defense, you are trying to like make those creases very, very small so they're hard to exploit.
Yeah.
And in some cases, you'll just dissuade them from running at all if you have enough bodies up there, and then that's even better.
Yeah, and I think this is going to be applicable even when they're in their sub packages, right? Like Alontae Taylor is going to be like a really vital player in their run game. And we haven't talked about Alontae. He's got a groin injury. We don't know exactly how long he's going to be out. All Kellen Moore would say was a little while. But he's going to play ball for him this year, and he's going to be a really important part of what they do as a run defender when they're in their sub packages and as a pass rusher too. We've seen a lot of corner blitzes this year in training camp, and that's like they're going to be an interesting team schematically. It's going to be so much different than what we're used to.
One thing to note about Staley's defenses with the Chargers, like at first they were like a really bad run defense. They ranked 30th his first year there, 27th the next, or 28th the next, and then he finished 17th in his final season. But not that I followed the Chargers that closely, but from what I recall is that they realized like they were so small up the middle with their defensive tackles. They really tried to beef up as he went along there. And that was one of their first moves. The Saints this offseason was to trade for Godchaux. So, you want to see coaches kind of learn from their last stops. And I kind of think, I haven't talked to him about this, but I think maybe that was one of the takeaways is, they have to be big and stout up the middle, and Godchaux helps them do that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say is I think it might have been their first move, at least their first move of any significance was to go get Devon Godchaux. And Brandon Staley has mentioned this is a guy that I wanted, that I knew, his reputation, and I knew the film and the analytics backed it up, and I wanted to go get him. So there's nowhere to go but up for this run. Well, technically they were 31st. They could move down one spot, but I think it will get better. But this feels like more than just, typical training camp optimism. I think it's going to get significantly better.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, I think it's going to be a lot better. Again, I don't think it's going to. I don't think it's back to like the 2018 to 21 years and they're top 5 every year, and they were one of the best run defenses in the NFL year in, year out. I don't think it's going to be that, but I do think they're going to be much tougher. And we'll see on the quarterback run stuff. It was funny that in their first preseason game, the post Dennis Allen era, they really struggled against that mobile quarterback. Obviously, those guys give every team they face trouble. It's a hard thing to defend, but I think once they get their players in there, that sort of stuff will even out.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see too. But that's also like Dennis Allen played so much man that your back has turned to the quarterback. That was a major problem. When you play a lot more zone, theoretically, it should not be as much of a problem when the regular season starts. So we'll see what happens. Okay, moving on here. Joint practice. Again, the caveat here is that we don't know for sure. It's not confirmed that the Saints will have this joint practice tomorrow with the Rams, but it looks like it's going to happen, or it's at least planned. And maybe the Saints want to get through today without any more injuries or something before they say, yes, let's do this. I don't know if the Rams are cool with just sort of being on the hook like that or what the deal is, but it looks like it's going to happen. This is something I know Jeff's been beating the drum for this since the beginning of camp. This is an important thing, in some ways even more important than the preseason games themselves, if you can get this look against another team.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate for the Rams that Matthew Stafford is hurt right now, just because even if he returns to practice for the Rams, which it seems like he might be in that range, he's not going to do team stuff, I would imagine. And so it would be this group going against Jimmy Garoppolo, but they have some talented players. Puka Nacua has destroyed these guys in the past, Luke's favorite receiver. And Devontae Adams, Derek Carr's former receiver, a former favorite receiver, is now there. And, I think it would be a good test for them ultimately. And you just want to see different looks because they've been going against the same scheme now for weeks on end.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about how good their run defense looked. Maybe the Saints rushing offense is just going to be terrible. That's the hard part about when you're just watching one team go up against itself. You have no frame of reference. It could be really good, or it could just be that they're playing against a scheme that they're really good at stopping. I don't know.
Yeah.
You get a much better sense of where the team you're covering is at, seeing them go up against somebody else, even if it's just for one practice. And then, Matt and I were talking about this the other day, but I think that joint practices give you an opportunity to, even though they're playing the Rams later this year, gives you an opportunity to try stuff that you don't want to try in a preseason game when you're like super vanilla all the time, because your all 22 is available to everybody, including, fans and me and Matt. And you don't want to have necessarily that out on film everywhere for the teams who you're going to be game planning for you in week 1, week 2, week 3. But they're playing the Rams in like later in the season. It's in November. I think they could show some stuff in this that would be like really legitimate, like game prep stuff they're going to use that's beyond the basics, and they can test it out and see what it looks like against another team. So I like the idea of joint practices. I think you get something as close to a game atmosphere without all the hoopla, and you can pit your best against their best and see what you got.
Yeah, it is interesting. Usually joint practices are against teams not on your schedule. So it is interesting that the Saints and Rams play, but it is later in the year. So there'll be a lot of film at that point anyway.
Yeah, at that point, they're going to have like 10 games to look at,
Yeah, not really a big deal.
10 games in one joint practice.
You can blame the Chargers for both of this, though, because the Rams were supposed to have joint practices against the Chargers. The Chargers pulled out, and the Saints tried very hard to line up practices with the Chargers before the preseason game, and that didn't. I guess Jim Harbaugh just doesn't believe in joint practices.
I don't know if he got spooked.
Away here.
Sean Slater goes out for the year, and he says, no thanks.
Yeah, could be. I mean, that was another thing. We saw the 49ers last year cancel the joint practices against the Saints because San Francisco had so many injuries, and that's what Kellen was saying. He was unsure whether it would happen because it would depend on the health on some of their guys. But it seems like the parties have moved past that, and now it's just like logistical stuff. But we'll see. Hopefully today's the day that we get the announcement.
I mean, it better be. You're going to get it at 6 a.m. tomorrow. I don't know. Those practices would be in Irvine. Is that the idea?
They would be in Carson, California.
Okay, so that's a drive for you guys. It's further up there.
Yeah, it's like not exactly halfway between where the Saints are and where the Rams are, but it's closer.
So that's the I don't even know what it's called now, but the soccer stadium there that used to be the Home Depot Center. Is that where they would be?
Yeah.
Not that anyone knows, but where the LA Galaxy has played for a long time. The California High School Championships are there. So yeah, it's somewhat close, but not quite as. It'll be a little bit of a drive, but not too much of a problem. So, specifically, anything you guys want to see? I'm curious. Like I put Kool-Aid McKinstry down there. I like to see how some of these D-backs line up against those receivers you're talking about. We've seen some of the Saints defensive backs have, really kind of pop in camp. So can they do that against, other teams' competition? Anything else you guys would be specifically looking for if this joint practice happens?
Yeah, I want to see the quarterbacks and how they perform. Yeah.
You don't say. Yeah.
I mean, obviously the quarterbacks, and I think I want to see the Saints rushing offense do something. I think I'm pretty high on what they're preaching in that room. They've been doing like a lot of gap scheme runs. Even though they're gonna run some zone stuff under Kellen Moore's offense, it's gonna be kind of multiple with the run schemes. They ran so much zone last year, they've kind of had to overload a little bit on the gap front. But I don't think we've really consistently seen a lot of explosive worthy plays out of this rushing offense, and they really struggled in the preseason game. Quarterbacks were responsible for I think more than half of their rushing yards.
Spencer Rattler was their leading rusher.
Yeah. I want to see what Alvin Kamara looks like running behind the first team offensive line against a really good defensive front in Los Angeles. One that ultimately it did struggle to stop the run last year, but you've got a lot of really good young players there. Jared Verse, Braden Fisk, Kobe Turner, Byron Young, really good players. I want to see what this offensive line looks like against them in the run game, because that's kind of got to be their bread and butter this year. If they're going to get these young quarterbacks to kind of play to the best of their ability, they got to be able to run the football.
Yeah. And even if the Rams front ends up not being a great run stuffing front, fine. Show me you can take advantage of that if you're facing a team, that can be that can be exposed that way. So interesting. Yeah, only 15 carries for 29 yards for the running backs on Sunday. Like not good, but also they didn't get a lot of opportunity. So that would definitely be something to watch as well.
Yeah, but it's going to be important to them to find out who their number 2 is, right? I mean, because Alvin didn't play obviously in that game, but you got to figure out, is it Kendra Miller? I think it's trending toward him right now. But is it going to be Cam Akers? Is it going to be Clyde Edwards-Helaire? Is it going to be Velus Jones? Yeah, a lot of guys who are really in the mix there, and I kind of need to see it from somebody, because you just don't see like live reps very often in these practices. So it's going to be important to show it at some point in the preseason, because they're going to need to lean on somebody other than AK. They are going into this really not wanting to have him be like a 25 touch a game guy.
We are more than halfway through training camp, and still a lot of questions for these New Orleans Saints, hopefully getting some more answers. Joint practice tomorrow, fingers crossed that comes off, and then the preseason game Sunday. The next Saints Insider will come your way Friday. We'll give these guys the day off to travel back to New Orleans. I'll be with Jeff Duncan, Rod Walker from our studio, so we will see you then. Until then, this has been the Saints Insider, sponsored by Bank Plus. For Luke Johnson and Matthew Paris, I'm Zach Ewing. Thanks for watching.